Hi there, folks. My name is Richard. I'm the audience engagement lead here at TES. It's 6 o'clock, so we're going to start our webinar. I have here with me today Paul Wassell, who some of you might know as lead practitioner on TES. And we are talking today about collaborating while being an author on TES, how you can work together to improve your traffic and your sales. So if you have any questions during this presentation, then please do put them in the chat at the side of the screen. We will be answering those at the end of the presentation, so do stick around to get your answers to your questions. My colleague Flora and Ben are behind the camera today, so they will be answering you on the chat. So we're going to begin with Paul, if you'd like to give us an introduction.
Okay, so the reason why I'm doing this talk as webinar today is to think about collaboration, but rather than it being, there's lots of things that we're doing at the moment, it's more things that we could do. So there's so much scope for things that we could do as authors to work together and to collaborate together and to help each other as a result of that. So I'm going to talk about some ideas I've got and some things that I've tried and some ways that I've worked with other authors to help my own shop, but also help them too. And it's been really beneficial to me, and I want to share those with you today. So I'm an English teacher, and I'm pretentious because I'm an English teacher. So I've included a John Donne quote, which says, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main." The reason why I've chosen that because it works very well as a metaphor for TES authors. We all have our own shops, we all run our own businesses, but actually we can work together and be a kind of archipelago basically to help each other and to collaborate. So working together will actually benefit all of us. So where do we go from here? What can we do? I'm going to basically just talk for some examples. I've kind of covered that already, so I'll skip a little bit.
Guys, people are getting an echo.
People are getting an echo?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I will just make sure the sound is set up correctly. Bear with me a moment. Please just let us know if that sounds any better now. So I'll just continue from where we are. So, Paul, how do you go about collaborating on TES?
Okay, there's loads of things that I do. Please go to that next slide. Okay, so here are some things that I've done previously and I'm still doing now. So for instance, improving cover designs. So when I first started, the covers that I had on my resources were quite basic. They just would have been maybe one picture, maybe a title and a date, like any teacher would have on the front of their lessons. But the thing to think about with covers is that actually they're the things that people see the most when they're on the test site and looking for things that they want. So it's thinking about what you're putting on your covers and what you want people to see. And I've worked with other authors and I've seen different strategies that they've tried, and I've spoken to them and they've spoken to me about different things that I've tried. So I've collaborated with other people in terms of cover design and sort of thought about how I can change those to improve them. So that's one thing that's really helped me and hopefully helped other people too. Sharing and promoting resources, well that's a big thing I'm going to talk a lot about in this webinar today. Different social media platforms that you can use, work with other people to help promote your resources to potential users as well. Creating resources for other subjects. Well, I am an English specialist, but I've made resources for other subjects. So I've done some quizzes, for instance, not necessarily English quizzes, sometimes they could be whole school. I've dabbled a little bit in science, so physics and chemistry too. But the main thing about that is that I've worked with other subject specialists and asked them about their subject knowledge and ways that they approach their subjects differently to how I might do as an English specialist. So that's been beneficial to me. And then of course the strategies that I use as an English teacher, I've shared some of those with other authors too in different subjects. So that kind of works both ways, and it's beneficial to all of us. Working together on social media, I've kind of covered that a little bit already, but I'll look at that in a lot more detail too a bit later on. And then making resources together as well. So if I give you an example, someone I've worked with before has given me something that they've used in their own subject previously. It's a specific topic, so like Black History Month, for instance. Someone's given me some materials for that. I've then used that and put it into more of an English context. So sharing ideas, sharing resources, sharing approaches is a really good way of helping yourself and helping others too. I think those are pretty much covered with that. Apologies. Just getting used to the mouse, sorry about that. Right. Okay, so if I give you one particular example, Emily is a citizenship PSHE specialist. She's been selling resources for quite a long time. She's got a friend called Gemma who is a history teacher. Emily's got loads of knowledge about how to promote her resources and what to make them look like and how to sort of engage people with them. Gemma's got loads of fantastic history content, but she doesn't quite know how to promote them because she's inexperienced in that way. So Emily's worked with Gemma on a shop called History Geeks, and they've effectively worked together to produce really good quality resources, but then work together to promote them and to share them with other people. So it's just about thinking, who do I know that could help me to improve as an author? Do I have particular resources? How am I going to promote those to other people too? So that's just one anecdotal example that I know of collaboration that's really worked between two authors. Yeah. Okay. Right. This has only happened recently, but there's a author called Pick Up and Go Resources on Tess, and she makes fantastic clip art. And the great thing about this is that when you're a Tess author, it's really important that when you're choosing your images that you're making sure that they're either copyright free or they're public domain, or you can definitely use them within your resources. And the benefit of the clip art that Pick Up and Go produce is that they are usable within resources. If you use them, you've got a right to put them in your resources. And so if I give you an example, I made a Rugby World Cup quiz. I love rugby, it's fantastic, best sport, much better than football. And when I made it, I spoke to Emma, who makes the resource Pick Up and Go, and I said, can I use some of those in my quiz, because she loves the rugby too, and she's made lots of different rugby related images, and you can see on that slide there, actually there's some of them being used there. So that's another new way that authors can collaborate. If you have a particular skill, so for instance making graphics that could be used in resources, working with other authors to help them to promote their resources. So there are new ways of thinking, I'm going to use a posh word, new paradigms of thinking. You can to basically improve your resources to help you to sell them to other people, basically. So that's just one example of a new way of approaching it.
Great. So there are different places to meet people then
that
you can actually work with. So we're going to cover a few of the different places. We're going to start with the TES community. So what is the TES community?
So it's a collection of forums. Obviously there's lots of other topics which aren't specific to being an author, but there is one particular group about being an author, and it's really useful. Just click on that, because you can see on that screenshot there, that's a screenshot from the forum on the website. You can talk to other authors, and you can also speak to people from TES staff about particular issues that might have or ideas that you have, and the TES staff will respond to those on the forum. But also it's a really good place to start collaborating. So if you've got an idea of how you want to move forward with that, so perhaps for instance, I'm going to talk about social media, but like making a Pinterest board together, something like that, or a particular project that you want to work on with someone else, or you've got a question or a query about something to do with being an author, that's a really good place to start a conversation and use it as a springboard to go elsewhere then, basically. I've used it a number of times and I find it really, really useful as an author.
And just so you're aware, there are some links in this presentation, but we will give you a link to somewhere where you can find all these links at the end of the presentation, so don't worry about making all the notes on them right now.
Okay.
So that's one way that we have on our own site on TES, but of course there's lots of social media channels where TES authors will all communicate as well, and Facebook I think is going to be one of the biggest places that I know many teachers still use. So how can authors use Facebook?
Okay, well there's one particular strategy I really like about Facebook, and there's a couple of groups that lots of established authors use and new authors use too, which are very useful for talking to other authors about issues you might have or ideas that you have. within that, there's a thing called Social Media Sunday. We tried it in one of the groups where basically we said to all the other authors in the group, I want to promote this particular resource on this particular platform, perhaps at this particular time. Then other authors agree to promote that, and then you swap resources and share promoting of different people's resources. Now that's really useful because, if I'll give you an example, there's an author called David Shorken. Hello David, if you're watching. David makes science resources, and he's really good at using Twitter, and I'm kind of more adept at using Facebook, but he's very, very good at that. So we've kind of worked together to promote each other's resources through the Social Media Sunday, and we've taken it from there. But we've been on. He shares one of my resources on Twitter. I share one of his, and it opens up to new audiences and therefore new potential customers. So Social Media Sunday is something that we do on the groups. You'll see that there's the links there on the slide too for the two groups. There's one which is more kind of for everyone, but there's also a group specifically for new authors too. So I really recommend joining them, taking a look and starting a conversation or joining in a conversation, because that's where you get to meet other authors, and it really, really does help you.
Fantastic. So you mentioned Twitter just now.
Yeah.
So how can authors use Twitter then?
Well, Facebook and Twitter are very, very different beasts. There's more of an author community on Facebook than there is on Twitter, but there are an awful lot of teachers who use Twitter. It depends on the subject and your subject specialism. So, for instance, English is huge on Twitter. For some other subjects it might not be. But the great thing about Twitter is its hashtags, because effectively what they are, you can probably see some of that picture there actually, in the purple writing. If you're not familiar with Twitter, if you click on a hashtag, it will take you to every single tweet that has included that hashtag. So it's a really good way of finding particular tweets very, very quickly. So for instance, if I just look at David's tweet there, he's mentioned, for instance, UK EdChat, which is a massive collection of teachers and educationists on Twitter, GCSE, Science, NQT Chat, so he's targeting different audiences there. Now, how I think we can collaborate with this is to create our own hashtags so that people can find resources they're looking for quite quickly. So I've made some suggestions, things like Teen Test or Edu Authors or something like that, so that people who are looking for a specific resource, they click on that, and we're all using those, and they can find quite quickly. So I think that's one way that we can move forward with Twitter and get the most out of it, basically. But David Short, there's a guy I mentioned earlier. He's just, I've retweeted one of his resources there, and he would have done the same thing for me. So we're helping each other to basically improve and promote our resources between us.
Excellent. So beyond Facebook and Twitter, which I think is what a lot of people sort of start out with in social media, there are other social media channels that are up and coming as well. And one of them is Pinterest. So how can authors go about using Pinterest?
Well, every single social media platform is so different to each other. So Facebook is more people, it tends to be people using their own names, talking to each other quite naturally. Twitter is more using an avatar and a nickname or a username. There's a slightly different setup. With Pinterest, it's very visual, so it's very much about the graphics and what you can see. So Tess have got loads and loads and loads of Pinterest boards. And the way it works is that you pin a particular resource onto a particular board. So for instance, there might be a World Space Day, for instance, or there might be an English revision board or something like that. And if users go on that, they'll be able to see lots of resources on that particular topic. So if I think I might have a picture on the next slide. I do, yeah. So you can see there, top left, there's some different boards that Tess have got, and you can see there, for instance, classroom management, current affairs, EL resources. They've got lots of followers, and they're a really good way of getting people to see what your resources look like and therefore link to them. But in terms of collaboration, one thing that I think we could really utilise is sharing free resources. I would like to work with Tess to basically set up some freebie boards where every single resource on there is free, because it's a gateway into looking at the quality of your other resources too. And they're very, very popular. Lots of Pinterest boards have many, many hundreds of thousands of followers, and I know the Tess ones do too. So that's something you can see there, 257,000 followers. So it's a really big thing, something to look at to help you moving forward with your shop, but also to work with other people too.
Fantastic. So other than actually using the social media accounts themselves, people will experience those social media in certain ways. They'll sort of have different discussions on them with different people. So what are some of the issues that authors face online that you might have experienced yourself, and what do you think authors can do about it?
Okay, I'm going to tread carefully this one. I'm going to put the next list because, oh yeah, I'll just look at this quickly. So there's a small group of users on things like Twitter and Facebook who can be quite negative to the idea of basically selling resources. And it's a very small group of people, but the problem is that their ideas are very negative and very toxic, and a lot of the time not true. And I'd like authors to work together to basically give all the good things out, to share all the good ideas, and to basically dispel these myths, basically. So I'm just going to quickly move on to the next bits. Okay. So there's lots of messages that I'd like to get out to other people to talk about why selling resources is actually a really, really good thing to do. So for instance, if I give my own examples, I made a resource the other day, a grade 9 revision guide for English, and I spent about 15 hours making that. If I was not in this position that I am, being able to spend that time, then the quality would not be as good, but it means I can spend that time and really, really improve the quality of my resources. So being able to sell resources enables you to do that, which benefits students and teachers and schools in the long run. So it's a really good thing to do. Also, in terms of the quality of resources, lots and lots of authors will use proofreaders to help them in terms of quality assurance. A lot of the time there's this idea that comes out is that textbooks, they're all quality assured and they're top notch, and just use textbooks because they're from these big companies and so they're really, really good. I actually saw the other day there's an example from a textbook that's been published talk about the positive elements of climate change, and that's caused a lot of controversy in the media. So textbooks aren't always perfect, but what I will say is that authors who are making resources are teachers and they know what they're talking about, and they're experienced practitioners. So that's one advantage of basically being able to get those resources. Also, it's not just teachers, individual teachers who are buying resources from TES. It is departments, and they're using their department budgets to help their staff. So for instance, on TES you can buy an individual license, but you can also buy a whole school license, which means that the whole department, the whole school is able to use those resources. And also it is about choice. If you as a teacher want to spend quite a bit of time making your own resources, or you want to adapt things from other people, that's fine. But I also think you should have that choice, that to be able to get something which is ready-made and you know is good quality and you're going to be able to use it in the classroom. And this basically allows you to do that. And also 96% of the downloads on TES are free. I mean, just have a think about that. 96% of downloads on TES are free. By us being able to sell our resources to other people, that enables TES to be able to share those free resources too. I mean, me personally, I've got something like 150 free resources on TES, and I've had lots and lots of downloads from them. I know lots of authors have as well. That would be a difficult thing to do if this wasn't happening. So, TES is there not just for selling resources, but sharing free resources too, and the majority of resources on TES are free as well. So it's just some messages to get out to people, to just think about what people think about selling resources. And also, just thing I'm going to add as well, which isn't on the slide, and there was a poll on Twitter back in July, and it was from a very prominent member of Twitter, a member of sort of the Edu Twitter as it's called, and they asked, what do you think about teachers selling resources? And there were just over 2,000 votes on this poll, and about 65% of people said they thought it was a really good thing to do. So it's just about getting across those positive messages, how this is a really good thing to do. And okay, so excuse the Freddie Mercury picture there, but that map is, let me just double check my figures because I've got it written here. That was the different visitors that I had to my shop in a 7-day window back in about June. So you can see that, yes, there's lots in the UK, but from around the world, people are looking at my resources and using my free resources too. So I've heard people saying, TES resources hasn't got any reach. That is utter nonsense. It has massive global reach, and you can get your resources can go all around the world. I had a review recently from an international school in Montpellier in France, which said thank you very much, it's been really useful for my students. I've had reviews from France, Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada. People are getting these, and it's a fantastic thing. As an author, that you're doing, that message I've put there, you're doing great things for thousands of teachers and students, and please, please, please don't forget that, because you're making a massive difference to the educational world, basically.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think it's great to end on that such a positive note with the idea of that global reach, because it really is something that we're interested in. We are a global company, and we are providing resources to a global audience, and we are strongly wanting more and more resources that can go out to that global audience. And as you say, you make your resources for the UK curriculum.
Yes.
And there are a lot of places around the world that are teaching UK curriculum in other countries, and we want to encourage our authors to actually cater to those audiences as well. Even if it's not UK curriculum, things like the International Baccalaureate is taught around the world as well as in the UK, and if you teach the International Baccalaureate in this country, there will be lots of people around the world looking for your resources. So it would be great to get them out there.
Yep.
Great, thank you very much, Paul. It's been fantastic. So we'll
to
finish off. Yeah, that's
just
fine.
A very brief summary then, just to remind everyone. Get on the TES community, talk to people on there, start collaborating there, use the Facebook groups, look at things like Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, work with other people so you help each other, and then also promote the great things you do. Get those positive messages out there, and please be confident and proud of the things that you're doing, basically, just to sum up. So, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
So we will move over to answer any questions that have come through now, and Ben and Flora have been collecting these questions for us. So where can we start?
Well, we have a lot of comments here, which is amazing. And I'm going to start with a tough one for TES. So someone has asked, TES takes a lot in royalties and tax. How do you work out our pricing?
Well, we don't work out the pricing of your individual resources. We leave the pricing of resources up to the authors. Is that what's being asked there, do you think?
Yes.
Yes. So in terms of pricing a resource, that is entirely up to you as an author. We don't want to be prescriptive in saying that this is the price that a resource is worth, because that really depends on the audience that you're selling to. If you are selling a resource for one subject, it may be very different to selling a resource in a different subject. So we can't give you a definitive price on what you should sell a resource for. You have to make that judgment for yourself as to how much time did you spend making this resource, what value do you think it's worth, what do you think somebody would want to pay for it if they were going to take it home. We have done a webinar in the past which has talked about the pricing of resources. So if you want to take a look at our other webinar, you can get a lot more detail from that about how you should go about pricing your resources.
Yeah, I'll share that link for that webinar right
Brilliant,
now.
thank you.
And next question is for Paul. And this is, do hashtags work on Facebook?
It's not so much Facebook. Facebook have experimented with them a little bit because it was working for Twitter, but I don't think people tend to use them on Facebook really. Twitter, they're everywhere and they're everything. I have tried using hashtags on Facebook, not really have much success with it. I don't think people just naturally use them, so I'd recommend definitely on Twitter, but not on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. And in general, there have been many comments about hashtags on Facebook. So how many hashtags in general do you include?
If I'm honest, I don't use hashtags on Facebook now. I did for a time, and as I said, I experimented with them, but I don't think people were clicking on them really. I think because Facebook is kind of, you have more of a natural conversation on Facebook. I think that's a fair thing to say. So people won't necessarily be clicking on hashtags, but they will click on links and they will look at pictures, so that's things to think about with Facebook. In terms of Twitter, that's very, very different because some hashtags are very, very popular, so depending on your subject. So for instance, Team English is very popular for English, and there are more general ones, EduTwitter, which I mentioned, or PGCE for PG students, or hashtag NQT for NQT students. So it's just about doing some research, finding out which ones are out there, which ones are good for your subject, and just seeing, how they are beneficial to you. But there's a lot of experimentation. The internet changes all the time, social media changes all the time. I've heard of some social media platforms that are coming about now that I've never heard of before. And I'm getting old now. It's my 34th birthday the other day, and I've no idea how these things work, but I'm going to have to learn how to use them because things change all the time. But hashtags are a good thing for Twitter, definitely.
Do you know if there's any sort of maximum number of tags you can put in a tweet?
As far as I know, there isn't. Obviously, there is a limit in terms of the number of characters that you can put in a tweet. I wouldn't recommend overloading your tweets with hashtags because it just looks a bit silly and it puts people off. I think be selective about it, which ones you want to prioritise. But yeah, they do work definitely. But just be selective. So.
Great. Another question is, what do you do to try to drive traffic to your TES resources?
Well, that's a good question.
It's a big question.
Yeah, it's a very big question. I think as an author, you've got to find the platforms that work best for you. I think if you're trying to do everything all the time, so you're trying to be on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest and all these different things, you're going to stretch yourself. And I think you've got to find the ones that you understand the best and you can work the best with, the best ones for your subject, and target those. So it's just thinking about what you feel the most experienced in, that you've had some success in perhaps already, and develop that. Look at what other people are doing too. But definitely, social media is a very good thing to use, and also, as I've said, talking to other authors and finding out from them, particularly people who might be in the same subject as you, what do they do and does it work, or what doesn't work. So get out there, start talking to other people, start collaborating, and I think you'll see the benefits pretty much straight away.
And it might be fair at this point to actually mention Instagram as well, which we've not mentioned so far, which is another one of the big social media out there.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it all depends on your subject, it all depends on your audience as to whether that's going to be the platform for you. So it might be that that's one that you might know better than some of the ones we've talked about today, that you want to use more in terms of putting advertising out there.
Yeah.
Amazing. Right, next one. So there have been people asking about information on the Facebook author groups that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
And they are not sure which are the best ones, the most appropriate ones. Can you give those people some more information, please?
Yeah. So on the slide that I mentioned previously, there's two really good groups. There's one which it's for everyone. So it's for more experienced authors and for new authors too. So you get a range of experiences, a range of people on there, and they talk to each other and help each other out. There's also another group which is focused more on new authors. So it's run by a very experienced author who helps new people who are just getting started. There's more kind of a chance to talk to people who are at the same place as you, or a similar place to you, rather than perhaps talking to people who are more experienced. So the two links are in the slides. I know they're going to be shared as well. So, but get on those and start talking to people on those, definitely.
Great. One more question is, how many resources can you upload to TES?
Well, I think that really depends how busy you are. We don't, as far as I know, I don't think there's been a limit actually set as to how many you can actually upload. We do have some authors who have thousands of resources on TES. However, you've got to think about, if you are uploading that many resources, are you really focusing on the quality of every single one of those to be of top quality, of a quality that people want to download? So when people, we used to have a system where we had people uploading lots and lots of resources purely because they wanted to climb our tier system. Now, we decided that wasn't the greatest approach, because we got a lot of people uploading things that weren't very good. So instead, we reward people now for uploading good things, because they will be the ones that make more money. It is much more important to focus on a few good resources than it is on a number of resources that you've not paid so much attention to.
Great. We have one last question about the option for individual or whole school license on TES when uploading. People are not sure if that exists.
Yes, so on the upload process, you're not going to see it. It's not going to be something that you're aware of at that point in time. It's something that is available to all purchasers when they actually make the purchase. So when they make the purchase, they will have the option to tick the box which adds the school license to it. Now, this is reliant on the honesty of our buyers, that the school license is purchased for sharing that resource around their school. But that is the purpose of it being there, and it is very obvious for when you're actually buying the resource that you can upgrade the purchase to a school license.
Great, amazing. That's it.
Great. So while we wait for any last questions to come in, do you have any more comments to add at the end there? Anything that's come to mind after those questions?
Yeah, I think what you said about quality is important, definitely. So rather than just trying to put as much as you can on the site, I think, yeah, I really like this resource. I think it's really good. I'm really proud of it. I think it's a good way of thinking about it. I'm really, really proud of the resource, the amount of time that I've spent on it, and I want to share that with other people. I think that's a good way of approaching it, rather than trying to think I'm going to get as much as I can on the site as possible. So I think that's a good way of looking at it. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, if there's no more questions coming in, that's fantastic. And we will end the webinar there. So thank you very much for attending. We will send out the link to you with the blog that has all the information from today's talk in. And if you have any more questions, if you have any issues, should I say, please can you email them to authors@tes.com. If you do want to stay in touch for any of our future webinars, keep an eye on the Author Academy and the content that goes up on there, and we will keep you updated on our next events. Thank you very much.